Let's go into All3D. Let's welcome Alon, Carmeli, CEO. Thank you. Come on up. Let's go around.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. As you may, all of you know, there are going to be different types of content for virtual reality, from video games to cinematic VR. We have decided to focus on user-generated content for VR. We believe that the more content there will be there, the faster the market will accelerate the VR market. So let me start my presentation by asking the question, how many of you think that a 360-degree panorama is a 2D panorama or 3D panorama? If you think that it's a 2D panorama, raise your hand. If you think that it's a 3D panorama, raise your hand. So 360 panorama can be 2D and 3D. And unfortunately, all the panoramas today are 2D. The reason being because everybody using more or less the same technologies. They are using a 2D stitch. We are the first company that developed and implemented a 3D stitch technology. Now, there are a lot of benefits for using, what is the difference between 2D and 3D panorama? A 2D panorama is actually a rectangular content that's being pushed into the sphere. And it looks like a 3D, but it's not 3D. And there is no depth map, and there is no separation between the background, the middle ground, and the foreground. While if you do a 3D panorama, you really get the separation between background and foreground, and what that provides, it provides much better immersive experience, especially for virtual camera. It's improved the stitching quality of the panorama itself, and it's also enabling technology for user-generated content for 3D VR. And the reason being is that 3D VR fix a lot of technical issues that 2D stitching cannot fix it. And I will talk about it in my presentation. So what do we do? All3D is a 3D VR content creation and publication platform. We are running on mobile devices, like a smartphone or tablets. Using the same process as you create a panorama, you create a 3D VR content. And therefore, we enable consumers to generate 3D VR photography content, and everything done in a fully automated process. So you just do panorama as you do today. It's much easier than what you do today. Because of our technology, it's come up without any artifacts, and automatically it creates 3D VR content that can be published and shared like any other content. So our goal in developing that technology, one, was to accelerate the market adoption, because it takes a lot of money and budget for high-end VR content to be developed and to be released. So it's much easier with such a technology like us to proliferate the market much faster. Because it's 3D, it provides obviously a 3D viewing, but it also enables a 3D interaction. So once there will be all those input devices, it will be very nice to integrate, and it will create a new generation of applications that currently with 2D panoramas are not available because it's a flat surface. Our solution, by the way, can be displayed on multiple devices. You can display it on head-mounted displays, you can display it on mobiles, you can display it on PCs, on any type of a screen, and depending on the screen that you display, it may show it in a 3D, or it may show it in a 2D projections. What is our application? So it has several components. It has a proprietary 3D stitching technology that we developed from the ground up, and this is one of the key elements of our application. We have a proprietary 3D reconstruction algorithm. It's a fully automatic process from the beginning and end. It's very easy to use, so any average user can generate a panorama. As you may know, the best panoramas are created today not by us, but actually by professionals. Because professionals take a tripod and their DSLR camera with a head mount, they turn the camera around the optical lens. The reason they do that is because they want to minimize or eliminate the parallax, even if they do a landscape panorama. And therefore, the panoramas that application we familiar today on smartphones, many times they don't come good. And if you notice, you never seen any indoor panoramas on iPhone, on a mobile application. All the panoramas are outdoor, because indoor there are even more challenges to create a panorama. Our solution partially run on the smartphone itself, but the heavy computational is done in the cloud. So why 3D stitching is a must for 3D content creation? For one, if you want a depth perception that will give you a better immersive experience and enable you a new opportunity for application for virtual reality, you need the depth. You need to know the structures. But also because the technique of 3D stitching, you get a much better stitch because it's done in 3D. Now, if you want to create a panorama in mobile devices, the mobile device as the capture device, you must use a 3D stitch. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, many times the panorama or the stitch don't come. There are a lot of artifacts. And even today, when you look on Google Street View and you zoom in, you see artifacts of a building of trees and cars, and they have the most money in the world to generate as best technology as possible. Now, if you want to create a scene, and this is true for many applications, for video games or virtual tours, if you want to do a scenes of indoor scenes, it's very, very hard to generate a panorama that doesn't have artifact the way that it's done today. Even if you do it with a tripod and DSLR and head mount. And the reason being is that in a small environment, you have what's called a parallax issue. And in indoor environment, because the distance between the door, the walls, and between one image to another, the ratio between the two is become more significant, and the artifact is even larger. So in order to overcome that, you must have a 3D stitch that solves that problem among others. And last, which I mentioned earlier, if you want to enable all of us and the other few billion people around the world to generate VR content, you need a 3D stitch, because everybody can take and generate the content, and some content won't be that good, but most of the content will be. And that content can generate additional application on top of that, and I will talk about it. So, what is our application today? So today what we deliver is a mobile application that you can download free of charge on your iPhone, and it will generate a 3D VR photography content creation and publications. And shortly we'll make it available on all the various head-mounted displays. You also will be able to show, to see the same content that you created in 3D on other devices if you don't have head-mounted displays, which only developers have it today, right? But if you imagine down the line, using our applications, if we decided to create it as an API 3D stitch engine, our solution can be integrated to video gamers applications, where you can have a hybrid of synthetic content and real-life content. After all, we live in the real world, and we have a lot of content that we can enjoy and we can take advantage of. That can create a new opportunity for video game developers to take using our technology to integrate into their Unity or any other game engines. But if you think in general and believe that VR will be a huge market, I believe that many of the applications that we're familiar with today will be either developed from scratch or being modified for a virtual reality experience. And I would like to mention some of the applications that can leverage our technology today. For example, VR tourism, which is a huge market, as we know. So just imagine, for example, a TripAdvisor, how we interact with TripAdvisor today. Okay, we go, we see picture, we see review, and etc. But with a virtual reality, and if you have the content, and because people will generate those content themselves, they will embed it, and you will have a VR TripAdvisor. The same thing that in a similar manner, people can generate a VR guided tour, because somebody will create a content, people can sign up to a tour, and with an interface within that applications, people can sign up and they can travel around the world, or they can do a virtual museum tours and etc. guided by people, either pre-recorded or live. And they will be in the same field, that they will be in the same room together. It's just a matter of creating some sort of communications between the head-mounted displays. Basically everything, if it will run on Samsung Gear VR, so it's just communication between iPhones, between smartphones. Another potential application, and I'm sure that Google is thinking about it, is let's assume that lots of people will take lots of generate VR content. Suddenly we'll turn Google Earth to Google Virtual Map. So the entire world will be in the virtual experience, and we'll be able to hunt from one location to another as if we are there. Another application in a different category is home decoration. And this is actually how I started my company. The previous name was called Decowiser. So I wanted to create to enable consumers to be able to modify their homes. The way that I implemented it is I created panoramas, 3D panoramas, and converted everything for 3D mesh. So the same application can be applied for virtual reality, because using our solution, all the content is in 3D, and then you can manipulate it. So using some level of scene understanding, you can paint wall, you can move furniture, and etc., and interact everything in 3D. And if you have internal designer that have the same thing, in real time they can see what you do. And then we can go from one category to another, such as VR educations in different type of categories. So while we're developing right now the foundation, which is 3D VR photography for content creation, we believe that once we'll open our engine, additional developers will be able to take advantage of that and develop a numerous number of applications based on the real world, providing VR experience. And that's the end of my presentation.
There's one question out there. We're going to move along. One.
What's the name of the app? I looked up All3D.
Okay, so the app is not available yet for download. It probably will be available for beta testing in a matter of a month or so. But if you're interested, contact me. I will give you my credit, my business card, my virtual reality credit card, and then I can charge you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.